Let's learn about the steps to prepare for an interview and common interview questions. We're going to unpack these steps more in depth as we go, but this gives you an overview of the interview preparation process. The first two steps are to learn about the job description and then reflect on how you've used those skills. Try to come up with at least one experience you have that ties back to each listed qualification. The third step is to research the organization and position. Many students wonder if doing research on the organization really pays off. Actually, 47% of employers say they'll reject candidates if they don't know much about their company. That's almost half. We don't need to know everything about the organization, but even a small amount of research can make a really big difference. Here are some areas you may want to research, including the mission/values, unique qualities compared to others in their industry, recent news or initiatives, culture, and even questions that you want to ask them. To find this information, review their website, especially if they have an About Us section, or you could also review their social media or the news. Or if you know somebody who works at the organization, you could ask that contact about some of these different areas. Next, let's take a look at some of the most common interview questions. Many of the most common interview questions fall into three buckets. So the first bucket is resume/experience-based questions. So these are questions about your experiences overall. They often include questions that come up for the employer walking through your resume. For example, I see that you worked at XYZ company. What did you learn from that experience? Or tell me about your research project. And of course, it has tell me about yourself, which is the most common interview question in America. Next is self-analysis questions. So these relate to your view of yourself, your strengths, and your goals. So some self-analysis questions might be, why do you want to work here in this role? What are your 3 greatest strengths? Or what is your greatest weakness? There are also behavioral questions. Have you ever been asked, tell me about a time that you, or describe a situation when? Many employers believe that your past behavior is the best predictor of your future behavior. So they'll ask you questions that focus on what you've done in the past. This is called behavioral interviewing. The secret to doing well with these questions is all about storytelling, which we'll break down in a different section here. Here are some common interview questions for grad school. Notice that they fall into the same 3 buckets. You can also do some research to find additional questions. For example, you could Google common interview questions for teachers or for physical therapy grad students. Or you could turn attributes from the job description into a question. For example, tell me about a time you demonstrated communication skills. In addition to preparing for how you'll answer common interview questions, you'll also want to prepare at least 3 questions that you want to ask them, and maybe even more. We want to have for sure 3 questions that we could ask, but sometimes preparing more than 3 can be good in case they answer some questions already throughout the rest of the interview. Consider your own personal values when choosing questions. This is your chance to interview them, so make sure you get the information you need to decide if this is an organization for you. For example, if you really value giving back to your community, maybe you want to ask about how the company supports volunteerism and giving back. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a common personal value for many MSUM students, so we included some extra questions that you might consider asking for that area. Other ways that you could evaluate a company's commitment to diversity could include looking at the diversity of the people in leadership positions, or doing an informal interview or meeting with someone from the company with a similar social identity to you. Here are some other questions that you could ask at an interview. One thing that we want to make sure not to ask about at this point is salary or benefits. We want to wait to talk about salary and benefits until after you have an offer. That is when you have the most negotiating power because they've already decided that you're the best candidate. Now, if they ask you about salary, here are some ways that we can respond to that. So if they ask, what are your salary expectations? You could say something like, I'd like to learn more about the role before I set my salary expectations. As we move forward in the interview process, I would hope and expect that my salary would line up with market rates for similar positions in this area. If they really push you, you can give a range, but make sure that before you go into your interview, you've got a good sense of what kind of range you could expect for this kind of position.